to Ayo now. Yes, Nigeria is a young country in terms of about 70% of our population are young people. And then we're talking about rituals and African traditions. And I think there is one that is slipping out of our hands that we can even use to transfer our rich heritage to these young people. And I'm talking about storytelling. Storytelling is one of the rich African traditions where elders, leaders, pass down wisdom, values, and cultural heritage through oral narratives. This was one way family history and morals were transferred, strengthening intergenerational bonds and fostering a sense of community and, importantly, identity across generations. Because now a large number of us are losing our identity. How can we bring back this tradition and leverage it to rebuild, bridge intergenerational gaps, especially in these times? Now, we now understand that these generations are for classifications. But I'm saying, especially at these times where there seems to be a wide gap between Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun.
If you don't know this, just be going home or call me elder when you see me.
Dun, 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 dun. You know, some people are already following that song. What do you remember? Tales by Moonlight. None of the people here sat down to listen to Tales by Moonlight in the village. Yes or yes? But you sat by it in front of your TV. Oh, well, Madam says she did. I didn't. I was born, bred, buttered, amalad, lafund, ogbonod in Lagos. Let me first of all speak to one of the issues that has been raised earlier. When you talk about elders being leaders, the first question you want to ask is, how many parents see themselves as leaders? We don't. Some do. Most don't. What's the difference? Listening. My friend, sit down there. In your own day, once you hear Papa, to your tent, O Israel. But today, your child hears Papa, come and stand in front of the door. My friend, go back there. You hear why. You tell Baba your why. You only hear why. Most parents, this is a question I asked, I was anchoring a panel last year, the Excellency Leadership Conference of Daystar, and one of the first questions I asked Pastor Nike at DMA, how do parents who need parenting parent others? So let us establish that first of all. Parents who need parenting are parenting. That is why they need an organization like IFED. That is free advert. So you people will pay for that advert first of all. But seriously speaking, people don't understand family engineering. I was glad to have Mr. Showmi on air last week and was talking about a number of things. So the Bible says, forgive me, I may quote the Bible from time to time, train up your child in what? Not the way you want the child to go. The way the child should. Many leave out that. Leading me to the answer to the question you asked about storytelling. There is something that the parents had then. They had what we now call in corporate organizations, institutional knowledge. Most of the stories that you read in the Bible and the Quran, they were not written initially. They were passed down how? Mouth to mouth. God then blessed them with enough memory, not the 512 kilobytes that some people have now. The elders of those days had their memories in gigabytes. Today, some of the things we are talking about here, by the time you step out there, most of us have forgotten. Why? Our attention span is short now. As at 2015, attention span was about 8 seconds, shorter than that of a fish. So how do that of the goldfish. So how do you let people remember the things you tell them? Only by stories. Stories that they can relate with and remember. The parents of those days had the opportunity for us to sit under trees and tell us stories of what happened to their great-great-grandfathers, then the great-grandfathers, and then the fathers, and all of that. Today, one of the opportunities we have is technology. Parents back then had education. What does this young generation have? Technology. Are we going there? No. We want to collect the technology from them. I assure you, you can't. It has come to stay. The best wisdom we can borrow ourselves is to go there to meet them. You are no longer able to summon a child to just come. You go to the child. Someone said, things are different now. Things are the same. They just have different variants of the same. Not be cap, PF they wear so. How many of us are wearing caps today? I don't remember the last time I wore one. But the traditions aren't going anywhere. We just have to recognize how they are evolving and latch on. Technology is one way to reach the average young person today. Most parents, most corporate organizations, most cultures with the elders are still largely the same. I assure you, we are losing them if we don't go to their playfield and meet them. That is why most corporate organizations today, they do the things that young people want so that they can attract them. So imagine a Union Bank, for instance, doing adverts for young people. Imagine First Bank using local balance. First Bank. 18, what did they start working? And they are still using, it's because they recognize that there is a need to bridge the gap. It's no longer an old people's bank. And I want to latch on a little to something that you said about the young person who is able to raise $600 and something million. The difference would be in the cultural values that young man has. Someone who cannot parent himself, who doesn't have what I can call intrapersonal communication. You can't talk to yourself. You want to talk to somebody else, you will mess it up. So storytelling is a powerful tool to use to communicate anything. But do you yourself, do you even know how to talk to yourself? Let me give you one last example and I'll hand over. This is how simple communication is. If I say, don't think, is there any picture in your head? None. Don't think about any picture in your head. Don't think about a dog. What's the first thing that comes to your head? You are all disobedient. So, if you want children to get it, paint pictures in their heads. If you want them to hold on to a thing, paint pictures in their heads. And there is an eternal strategy. Repetition does what? Brings retention. The more you say the same thing, the more they are likely to remember it from time to time. But you yourself have to be persuaded that the information you are giving your children, you are not telling them what you want to do and you are doing the other thing. Not like saying, go and tell that man that I'm not at home. And the child says, my daddy said I should tell you.
Thank you so much for that. So yes, Ayo has brought to our notice to recognize that growth is continuous. If you will lose relevance if you stay stuck in the past. So always ask yourself, what do we need to do differently? And then when it comes to storytelling, I think each of us should go back home and find ways to preserve our cultural narratives. If you're not taking anything from this conversation about storytelling and oral tradition, you want to go and document, interview your grandparents down your genealogy, as many of them are still alive. I remember sometime in 2019 or 2021, I can't remember if it was post-COVID or before, my husband and I said, you know what? Invite the grandparents. We had a weekend retreat with them. And then the children, asking questions. How did you meet grandma? What is the legend story of our generation? And all of that. And it was interesting listening to him talk about the young man who is building an AI tool to preserve the stories from. I felt that I needed to connect with that because for us, we just documented it, soft copy. But imagine I want to ask something like, how do I do something? And then I ask AI like we ask Alexa, and he just tells me something my father told me. Now, my dad is 86. At least, if God gives him life, many more years, he won't be here with us. But like he said, when we live here, we forget everything. So please cherish every member of your family who is still here with you and create out time to talk about your family legends, your stories, and document it. Even if you have not gotten the AI one, at least have a soft copy of it. And of course, we need to also, promote literacy and creative expressions where we're able to, like everybody remember that Tales by Moonlight. But these days, what do we have on air? Wahala, 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 right? So we need to, I'm giving that back to you, please. Can you give us more African content? And like he rightly said, I live with this before I move on to the next panelist. Ayo did share something very fundamental. How can parents who need parenting parent their children? I think this is that place where we say deep. You know how we say on social media when somebody drops something? That is really deep. But I want to encourage every parent here. Even in parenting your children effectively is in you admitting the gaps that you have. The areas in your life where you need parenting. And don't just be like the father who would beat the child for coming last. And then one day they were clearing daddy's cupboard and they saw that daddy has been coming. Do you understand? So you have to be sufficiently vulnerable with them. When they ask you questions you don't know the answer, tell them you don't know the answer, but I will go and research. Don't just answer anything because at the end, all of us are a work in progress, but we have to show leadership and also submit. And like Ayo said, one place you can learn to be a parent is by enrolling in the Family Systems Engineering Certification course, because there you would get to understand why you are the way you are, and then with the tools and methodologies in the approach, you can also reparent yourself so that you can be a more effective parent to your children. Clap for me for that. Okay, so round 2.